The crash alt. James Calder's ship shook violently as it entered the thick atmosphere of the alien moon. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The control panel beeped loudly. He gripped the joystick with trembling hands. "This isn't good," James muttered. The jungle below looked dark and endless. He had never seen a place like this before. Huge trees with glowing leaves, strange sounds in the air. His mission was simple: scout this moon for any signs of life or danger. But now, the ship's engine was failing fast. A loud bang echoed inside the cabin. The warning lights went red. James braced himself. The ship crashed hard into the jungle floor. Wood and metal cracked as the ship broke apart. Dirt and leaves flew everywhere. James felt a sharp pain in his leg. He tried to move, but his leg wouldn't obey. His helmet's visor cracked, fogging his view. His comms were dead. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Lieutenant Calder. I'm down!" He shouted, but only silence answered. The ship was gone. Only smoke and broken parts remained. James forced himself to crawl out. His breathing was heavy. The pain in his leg was strong. The jungle was quiet now. Too quiet. He looked around. The trees were huge and strange vines hung like snakes. The sky above was a dull purple with two suns low on the horizon. He knew he had to move, but every step hurt. Suddenly, a low growl came from nearby. James froze. The growl came again, closer this time. He turned slowly, searching the shadows. A pair of glowing eyes appeared in the dark bushes. James held his breath and crawled into tall grass. His heart beat fast. He watched as a large creature stepped into the moonlight. It was like nothing he had seen before. The creature was tall, almost 7 feet, with thick muscles and covered in brown fur. Its face was a mix of human and beast, sharp teeth, pointed ears, and bright green eyes. It had long claws, but there was pain in its movements. James noticed a long thorn stuck deep in the creature's right thigh. Blood dripped slowly onto the ground. The creature growled low, but also looked scared. It moved carefully, limping. James knew this was no ordinary animal. Suddenly, the creature stopped and looked straight at him. Their eyes locked. "If you keep looking," the creature snarled in a rough voice, "I'll pounce. Now hurry and get the thorn out." James blinked, in shock. The creature spoke, clearly and in words he could understand. He was terrified, but something about the creature's pain made him act. Slowly, James crawled out of the grass, showing his hands to prove he meant no harm. The creature watched him, carefully, ready to attack if needed. James reached into his jacket and pulled out a small knife. He took a deep breath and moved closer. The thorn was large, sharp, and buried deep in the creature's leg. It was strange, like a metal spike with glowing edges. James grabbed the thorn's base and pulled hard. The creature hissed in pain but did not move away. Finally, the thorn came out with a soft pop. Blood flowed freely. James pressed his jacket to the wound to stop the bleeding. The creature's eyes softened for a moment. Without a word, she turned and limped away into the trees. James watched her leave but noticed she dropped something small near the spot where she had stood. Curious, James crawled over and picked up the object. It was a strange artifact, a small metal cube with strange symbols glowing faintly on its surface. James turned it over in his hands. It felt warm. Suddenly, a soft hum came from the cube, and the symbols flashed brighter. James stared at it, feeling a strange energy. "Who are you?" he whispered. But the jungle answered only with silence. James looked up. The sun was almost gone. Darkness would come soon. He knew he had to survive this strange world, and now, this strange creature was his only link to answers. The pack night fell quickly over the alien jungle. The purple sky darkened and strange sounds filled the air. James sat under a giant tree holding the glowing cube tightly. The light it gave was soft but enough to keep the shadows away. He didn't know what the cube was or why the alien beast woman had left it behind. His leg still hurt badly and the jungle was full of dangers. He needed shelter and answers. Suddenly, A soft rustle came from the bushes nearby. James tensed, ready to defend himself. The glowing eyes appeared again. It was the beast woman, the one he had helped. She limped slowly toward him, her green eyes watching carefully. James stood up, holding his hands out to show he meant no harm. She stopped a few feet away, her chest rising and falling from pain. James took a deep breath. "I don't want to hurt you," he said slowly, "but I need help. Can you understand me?" The beast woman studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke again, her voice low and rough. "Name is Caritha. You are human?" "Yes." James nodded. "I'm Latorn James Calder. My ship crashed here. I'm alone. Injured." Caritha's eyes softened a little. "You saved me. Thorn was poison from my people's traps. You took it out." James remembered the sharp, glowing thorn. "Why were you hurt? Who did this to you?" Caritha looked around nervously, then whispered, "Hunters. From my tribe. They want me dead. I am exiled." James's heart pounded. An alien tribe, hunting one of their own. This was more than he expected. Caritha limped further into the bushes, then stopped and looked back. "You come with me. Safe place." James hesitated. Could he trust her? But the jungle was no place for him alone. He nodded. Together they moved through the thick jungle, Caritha guiding him with surprising strength despite her injured leg. The jungle was alive at night, glowing insects, strange calls, and moving shadows. James's heart jumped at every noise. Finally, they reached a hidden cave behind a waterfall. Inside, it was cool and dry. Soft glowing crystals lit the walls. Caritha settled down, panting from the pain. James took out his first aid kit and began cleaning her wound. "Why do they want you dead?" James asked quietly. Caritha looked away. "I broke their laws. I refused to follow orders." James frowned. "What orders?" She stared at him, eyes dark. "My people hunted humans, tested them, made weapons from their blood and strength. I stopped it. They call me traitor." James felt a chill. Humans, experimented on by aliens? That was hard to believe, but why save me? He asked. "You don't have to help me." Caritha met his eyes. "You are different, not like others." James's mind raced. Different? How? Before he could ask, a sudden noise stopped them. Both a branch snapped outside the cave. Caritha growled and moved in front of James. "Hunters," she whispered. James's breath caught. Were they coming for him? For Caritha? The cave entrance darkened as shadows moved closer. Caritha whispered fiercely, "Hide, now." James crouched deeper into the cave shadows. Caritha stayed near the entrance, ready to fight. The hunters entered the cave slowly. James could see their shapes. Tall, armored, carrying glowing weapons. They stopped, sensing something. James held his breath. One hunter pointed a glowing scanner toward the cave walls. Caritha snarled and leapt forward. The fight was brutal. Claws and energy blasts filled the cave. James wanted to help, but his injured leg held him back. Caritha moved fast despite the pain. She knocked one hunter down, but another blasted her with a weapon. She fell hard. James couldn't stay quiet any longer. He grabbed a fallen branch and swung it with all his might at the nearest hunter. The hunter staggered, surprised by the humans. "Attack!" James rushed to Caritha, helping her up. "Go, run," she said. But James refused. Together, they pushed deeper into the cave's hidden tunnels. After running for what felt like minutes, they found a small underground chamber. James looked at Caritha. "Why are they after you? And why me?" Caritha's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "You have something they want," she said. "The cube you hold, it is ancient tech, a key, to power, to war." James looked down at the cube. It hummed softly. Suddenly the walls trembled. A deep rumble shook the ground. "The hunters find us," Caritha said. "We must move." James's mind was racing. The jungle, the hunters, Caritha's story. It all felt bigger than him. He made a choice. "I'll help you," he said firmly. "If you help me get off this planet alive." Caritha nodded slowly, pain in her eyes, but also trust. They sealed their pact. James knew this was no longer just a survival mission. It was a fight for life, truth, and something far more dangerous than he imagined. The hunt begins. The cave's shadows swallowed James and Caritha as they hurried through the winding tunnels. The glowing cube pulsed softly in James's hand, lighting their way like a heartbeat in the dark. Behind them, distant echoes of footsteps and shouted orders bounced off the stone walls. The hunters were relentless, closing in fast. James's injured leg throbbed with every step, but he forced himself to keep moving. He didn't want to slow Caritha down or put them both in danger. Caritha's breath came in short gasps. "They will not stop," she said grimly. "My people fear the cube's power. They want it, and you, dead." James glanced at the cube again. The symbols on its surface now shimmered brighter, almost alive. "What is this thing, really?" he asked, eyes wide. Caritha's green eyes narrowed. "The cube is not just a tool. It holds the power of the ancients, an old race that once ruled this galaxy. It can control energy, minds, even time." James swallowed hard. The stories he had heard of ancient alien technology were nothing compared to this. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clang echoed in the tunnel ahead. Caritha froze. Trap! Before James could react, the floor beneath them trembled. Panels slid open, revealing a pit filled with sharp spikes glowing faint blue. James stumbled but caught himself. "We must jump," Caritha growled. Without hesitation, they leapt across the pit, hearts pounding. James landed hard, pain stabbing through his leg, but he kept moving. On the other side, a narrow corridor opened into a vast chamber. The chamber was unlike anything James had ever seen. Walls made of crystal pulsed with light. Strange symbols floated in the air like holograms, and in the center stood a pedestal, empty, except for a faint glowing outline shaped exactly like the cube James carried. Caritha's eyes flickered with alarm. "This is a temple of the ancients," she whispered. The cube belongs here. If placed, it will unlock secrets and danger." James looked around nervously. The air felt thick, heavy with energy. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the chamber. The walls began to close in slowly like a giant trap. "Have little time," Caritha shouted. James ran toward the pedestal, clutching the cube tightly. He hesitated. Should he place it? What if it triggered something worse? Before he could decide, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Foolish human," it said, deep and mechanical. "You cannot control the power you carry." James turned sharply. From the shadows emerged a tall figure, clad in armor covered with glowing runes. It was one of the hunters, the leader. His eyes shone with cold hatred. "You have something stolen. From my people," the leader hissed. "Give it to me or perish." Caritha growled, stepping in front of James. "You will not take it," she spat. The leader laughed cruelly. Suddenly, energy blasts flew across the chamber. James ducked behind, a crystal pillar, heart racing. He could hear Caritha fighting fiercely. Her claws raked through armor, but the leader was strong and fast. James's mind raced. The cube pulsed urgently in his hand, almost begging to be placed on the pedestal. He took a deep breath and made his choice. With a quick step, James dashed forward and slammed the cube onto the glowing outline. A brilliant light exploded from the pedestal, filling the chamber with blinding energy. James was thrown back by the force but landed hard on the ground. The leader screamed in rage as invisible chains shot out from the pedestal, wrapping around him tightly. Caritha stared in shock. The chamber began to transform. The crystal wall shifted, revealing strange ancient machines coming to life. A deep voice boomed through the room. "You have awakened the Guardians." James sat up, panting, staring at the machines. "They protect the ancients' power," Caritha said. "And now, they protect us." The leader struggled in the chains, eyes wild with fury. "Release me," he shouted. "You have doomed us all." James looked at Caritha. "What does he mean?" She shook her head slowly. "The ancients warned, if the cube falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything." Suddenly, the machines hummed, louder. A bright portal opened in the chamber's wall, swirling with energy. Caritha's eyes widened. "This is a gateway." James stood, still hurting but determined. "We need to go through it," he said. Caritha nodded, limping toward the portal. "Whatever lies beyond," she said, "we face it together." James took one last look at the glowing cube in his hand, now calmer but still alive with power. He stepped forward. The jungle, the hunters, the ancient secrets, they were all behind them now. But what waited on the other side? No one knew. Into the unknown, James and Caritha stepped through the glowing portal together. The light was blinding at first, but when it faded, they found themselves in a place unlike any jungle or planet James had ever seen. The air was thin and cold. Around them stretched endless fields of strange crystals, shining with colors that shifted like living rainbows. Above, two suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows. James shivered. This place felt both beautiful and dangerous. Caritha looked around carefully. "This is the lost world, the place the ancients left behind. Few have ever come here and lived." James's heart pounded. The cube in his hand felt heavier now, as if it knew this place held answers. Suddenly, a low growl echoed across the fields. James spun around, hand on his weapon. From behind a giant crystal rose a huge creature. It looked like a wolf, but covered in shimmering scales and glowing eyes. Caritha hissed, stepping in front of James. "Be calm. This is a guardian beast. They protect this world." The beast snarled but didn't attack. James relaxed slightly but stayed alert. "We need to find the ancients' temple here," Caritha said. "It may hold the key to controlling the cube." They started walking through the crystal fields. The ground beneath their feet sparkled and cracked softly. Suddenly the earth trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the air. From the horizon, a dark shape appeared. James squinted and saw a massive army approaching. The hunters. They had followed them through the portal. Caritha growled fiercely. "They will not stop until the cube is theirs." James gritted his teeth. They had no choice but to run and fight. As they sprinted toward a distant mountain glowing faintly with light, James noticed the cube pulsing faster, almost guiding him. "Follow the cube," James said. "It's leading us." Caritha nodded and pushed herself to run faster despite her wound. The hunters shouted and fired energy weapons, but the crystal fields distorted their shots, protecting James and Caritha for a moment. They reached the mountain's base, where an ancient doorway carved with alien symbols stood open. Caritha touched the symbols. The temple. Inside, the air was cold and still. Strange machines hummed softly, and the walls told stories in glowing patterns. James placed the cube on a pedestal at the center. The chamber lit up. Suddenly, holograms of the ancients appeared, their faces wise and serious. "You who awaken us hear this warning," a hologram said. "The cube holds great power, the power to create or destroy. But beware the lost ones. They hunger for its strength." James felt a chill. Lost ones? The hologram's eyes glowed. Beings twisted by the ancients' mistakes, cursed to wander between worlds, seeking to claim power. They are coming. Caritha gripped James's arm. "We must prepare. They will come for us and the cube." Suddenly the temple shook violently. A shadow fell over them. The lost ones had arrived. Dark shapes slipped through the temple walls, creatures of shadow and smoke, with eyes like burning coals. James raised his weapon. Caritha bared her claws. The battle had just begun. Shadows in the temple. The lost ones poured into the ancient temple like a black wave, their twisted forms slipping through walls and floors as if they had no real shape. Their eyes burned with cold hunger for the cube's power. James stood back to back, with Caritha gripping his blaster tightly. The glowing cube pulsed fiercely in his other hand, almost as if it wanted to fight with them. "Stay close," Caritha growled, her sharp claws flashing in the dim light. The first lost one lunged at James, smoke-like tendrils reaching for his weapon. He fired, but the shot passed right through the shadow creature, making no sound. James staggered backward, heart pounding. These beings were unlike anything he'd ever faced. Caritha hissed, slashing through a lost one with a swift swipe. The creature screamed, a sound like metal scraping bone, and dissolved into mist. "We can't kill them with normal weapons," she shouted. "The cube, use it." James hesitated, but then squeezed the cube's sides. A bright wave of blue energy burst out, pushing the shadows back. The lost ones howled and retreated a step. James's confidence grew. "It's like the cube fights for us," Caritha nodded. "But it will tire if you overuse it. Save your strength." Suddenly, from the temple's highest chamber came a chilling voice, deep and echoing, both human and alien. "You dare steal the ancient's power?" it boomed. "You will pay." A massive lost one appeared, larger than the others, its form shifting between shadow and solid. Caritha growled low. "The Shadow King." James felt a cold sweat. The stories Caritha told now made sense. This was the leader of the Lost Ones, and their greatest threat. The Shadow King stepped forward, his eyes locking onto the cube. James gripped the cube tighter. "We won't give it to you." The Shadow King raised a claw and darkness surged toward them. James braced for impact, but the cube flashed brightly, forming a shield around him and Caritha. The Shadow King snarled, pulling back. "Caritha," whispered urgently, "the temple's power is ours to control. We must unlock its secrets before they overwhelm us." James looked around the chamber, spotting strange control panels carved with glowing symbols. He stepped forward and touched one. The room shook. Suddenly, a hidden door slid open, revealing a spiral staircase leading deeper underground. Caritha's eyes widened. The core chamber, the heart of the ancient's power. James hesitated. "If we go down there, what if it's a trap?" Caritha smiled grimly. "It's a risk we must take. We have no choice." As they started down the stairs, the Shadow King and his army pressed close behind. The temple groaned, warning of collapse. James's injured leg burned, but he pushed forward, the cube glowing steadily in his hand. At the bottom, they entered, a massive chamber filled with machines humming with power. A giant crystal stood in the center, pulsing with the same energy as the cube. Caritha touched it. "This is the core crystal. It can amplify the cube's power, or destroy it all." Suddenly, the Shadow King burst in, blocking their path. "You will not control the ancient's power," he roared. James squared his shoulders. "We will protect it from you." The final battle was about to begin. The heart of power James stood before the core crystal, its glow reflecting in his eyes. The Shadow King growled behind him, his dark form twisting like smoke in the heavy air. Caritha was at his side, her claws ready, muscles tense. The chamber trembled as the two forces prepared to clash. The Lost Ones surrounded them like a storm. James could feel the cube's power pulsing wildly, as if urging him to use it. But he remembered Caritha's warning. Too much, too fast, and it could destroy everything. The Shadow King stepped forward, voice like thunder. "Give me the cube, human. I will spare your life." James shook his head. "Never." With a roar, the Shadow King charged. Darkness exploded, from his claws reaching out to snatch the cube. James raised the cube. A blast of energy shot out, knocking the Shadow King backward. But the enemy recovered quickly, and the battle became a blur of light and shadow. Caritha leapt forward, her claws flashing, striking Lost Ones that tried to flank James. But even she struggled against the endless tide. James's leg burned, and sweat dripped down his face. The cube's energy was draining him. Suddenly, the core crystal pulsed brighter. James looked up. The cube and crystal were resonating together. A voice echoed inside his mind. Ancient, calm, powerful. Only one worthy may claim this power, it said. Choose wisely. James hesitated. The power to destroy the lost ones, or to control the fate of many worlds, was in his hands. The Shadow King lunged again. James closed his eyes, focused on the cube. With a shout, he unleashed a wave of pure energy. The temple shook violently. Shadows screamed as they were blasted away. But the energy surged too strong. The cube glowed red-hot, burning James's hands. Caritha cried out, catching him before he fell. The chamber cracked, stones falling. James gasped. He realized the cube was unstable. If we don't stop now, the whole temple will collapse, Caritha shouted. James looked at the core crystal, then at the Shadow King, who was slowly rising from the rubble. He made his choice. He pressed the cube against the core crystal. A blinding light filled the chamber. The cube and crystal merged, becoming one glowing orb. The lost ones howled and vanished as if erased by the light. The Shadow King screamed, dissolving into nothingness. When the light faded, the temple was silent. James and Caritha looked at each other, exhausted but alive. The cube's power was sealed safely in the core crystal. James whispered, "We did it. But at what cost?" Caritha smiled faintly. "The galaxy is safe. For now." The hidden threat, the light from the core crystal's fusion, slowly dimmed, casting soft glows over the ancient temple ruins. James and Caritha stood silently, catching their breath after the fierce battle. The lost ones were gone. The Shadow King defeated. Or so they thought. James looked around, feeling the quiet weight of the moment. Is it really over? Caritha's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows beyond the temple walls. In my world, peace never lasts long. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Dust fell from the temple ceiling. James steadied himself. From the jungle trees came a low humming sound, different from before, mechanical, but alive. James raised his weapon, tension snapping in the air. From the thick vines emerged a sleek, silver ship, unlike anything James had seen. It hovered silently, cloaked in a shimmer that bent light. A hatch opened and a tall figure stepped out, human but with glowing blue eyes and a calm, unreadable face. James instinctively stepped forward. "Who are you?" The stranger's voice was steady, almost cold. "I am Commander Lysar of the Galactic Overseers. We've been monitoring the Ancients' power for centuries." Caritha growled low. "Overseers? What do you want?" Lysar's eyes locked on the glowing core crystal. "That power is too dangerous to be controlled by any one species or individual. We must take it into our custody." James tightened his grip on the cube crystal. "We fought for this power. We won't hand it over to strangers." Lysar smiled faintly. "I'm afraid you don't have a choice. The Overseers have forces everywhere." "You are far from home now, Lieutenant Calder," Caritha growled, stepping in front of James, ready to fight again. Suddenly, from the jungle behind Lysar, dozens of advanced drones appeared, weapons aimed. James realized they were trapped. But as the Overseer's forces advanced, the core crystal pulsed once more, brighter than before. James felt a new energy rising within him, stronger and more alive. He whispered, "The Ancients' power. It's choosing me." Caritha's eyes widened. "Then you must decide. Protect the power, or destroy it." James looked at Lysar and his drones. He looked at Caritha, and then with a deep breath he raised the glowing orb high. The temple shook violently. Energy burst forth in waves that blasted the drones away and forced Lysar back. The core crystal glowed with ancient light spreading across the jungle moon, as if awakening the planet itself. Lysar shouted, "No! You can't control it." But James knew the truth. Power was never just about control. It was about choice and sacrifice. The jungle around them began to change. Trees shimmered. The air hummed with life, and strange creatures appeared, drawn to the energy. James lowered the crystal. This world, this power, belongs to all who protect it, not just one group or empire. Lisar hesitated, then slowly nodded. Perhaps you are the guardian we have been waiting for. Caritha stepped closer to James. Then the real fight has just begun. To keep this power safe from those who would misuse it. James looked out over the glowing jungle, feeling a new sense of purpose. The unknown future was waiting. But now, he was ready.